the Success Template. This is our second online interview, and the interview will be with the lovely Nompumelelo Fukuthwa. I hope you enjoy the interview and that you find valuable information as well as advice. My name is Nadine van Reiner, and I'll be your host today. Hi, and welcome to the Success Template. Nompumelelo Fukuthwa.
Hi everyone.
Um, let's start off with the first question. Tell us more about yourself.
Okay. Hi everyone, and thank you for having me and everyone that's going to see this. My name is Nompumelelo Fukuthwa. I was born and grew up in both here, went to Motherwell to attend both my primary education and my high school. And then I was admitted at Nelson Mandela University. I think for my first qualification, it was in business. And I didn't like anything. I knew from high school that I didn't want to be business related. But you know how people are when they say, who's going to hire you with history? Because I've always had a passion with history from high school. But everyone was like, history is all about storytelling. You won't get a job. So, but now I recently completed my BA on BA qualification in history and English. But I'm currently pursuing my honors history with my research topic on African indigenous churches and African spirituality.
Wow, that's amazing. Why did you want to study history of all the subjects you could have chosen?
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I think my high school teacher from grade 10 and 12, that's when I started falling in love with history. And it was all about Black consciousness back then. High
Oh,
school, you only surface of days of history, you don't go into deep. And then when I came to university, that's when I saw that it was very deep. But what interested me more was all the untold stories, the discovering of history, because South African history has always been told in a Eurocentric lens. It has always been told and written by Eurocentrism, by people that witness history. So I wanted to be the one to tell from our people that experienced history and debunking all those myths that are told about us and getting out of the victim mentality of how we were oppressed and all those things. I wanted to be the one to tell the history that our people fought and how was it.
wow. I love the answer that you gave, where you stated that you wanted to clearly get the information about your history instead of just hearing it based on word of mouth. Because sometimes when we get information via word of mouth, we often get deceived. So it is important to actually study and get wisdom from a reliable source. So the next question for you is, what is the most exciting thing about studying history?
Uh, I didn't actually realize a lot of traveling. I was not aware of that. History you not. And also history you don't depend on textbooks. You use textbooks as your secondary sources. But for your primary sources, whatever story or research that you want to do, you have to be there at that place. If you're gonna do the history of Transkei, for me, I have to travel there. I have to be there at those places where all those things happened because like I said, it's not about telling stories because if you're gonna write about something that someone said in a book, then that becomes a story. So it's all about facts. It's based on facts, and I love that whenever tradition and stories, because most of our history was not written down. It's passed down from generation to generation. So when I hear those stories from my great grandparents, from my grandmother, from my community in the rural areas, and then I go to the archives to see those documents, and then I found old recordings that actually what they're telling me, what those stories are thinking they're just fairy tales, but they're actually true. These events happened. Here are records from years ago from the archives in Cape Victoria that say this is true and it happened, and then you find out in history why was it narrated in this perspective and not told in the way that it happened. So that is the most exciting part when all those things come. together and then find evidence that backs up these stories, and you're like, it's a piece of a puzzle that just comes together, and it's like an investigation. If you love
Yeah.
investigating, love history.
Wow. So I love the part where you said that it's almost like a puzzle piece that comes together. So basically, what you heard from the people that you hear stories from, it gets confirmed in the books that you read and that you learn about. And that is actually fascinating.
Yeah, and the archives record. Government has a place called archives. I didn't know about this. So basically, it's where you find bones of people from the Anglo-Boer War, found guns that were used in the first wars. You find documents, letters that were written by soldiers. You'll find uh, compasses and all those things, and recordings that people had, farmers, workers, and they would record, and you'd see these people migrated, they were staying here, they were kept, they were slaves. So the government has a place like that. It's archives. That's where, as a historian, that's basically where you live, because that's where you find evidence of whatever it is you're writing about.
Okay, so it's almost like when you, I'm not sure if you are allowed to enter those archives and go and study the information yourself. But I'm sure that as someone who's studying history, if you would enter into a space like that, it would be like walking into a candy store for you. So, the next question for you is, what advice would you give someone who desires to study history but have so much things that they have to overcome, like social media and not wanting to focus and being distracted all the time? What advice would you give to someone like that?
Um, you, you have to love history, whether that you wanna be you wanna research your heritage, you wanna research your culture, you wanna research your language, you wanna research your people, and tell the stories. You just have to be passionate, and you have, because sometimes it can get frustrated when you don't find information that you're looking for. And you have not only passionate, but you have to be patient and love reading. You read a lot with history. It's read library archives. That's all. That's all. You don't have in life apart from that. So it once you have that love, it doesn't become like a job, but it just becomes a passion. That's something you love. Constantly you're thinking about that book that you read, and then those things connecting, and you're like, I need to find this. Okay, I hear there's a book that my assistant. So you just, once you start reading and writing, develop that skill, there's no turning back.
So it's basically a passion that you need to have for it if you go into it.
Passionate, you have to be patient, and you have to be curious.
Yeah. So the next question for you is, what is the most difficult part of studying history?
Uh, Apart from being misunderstood, because people constantly have misunderstanding what history is. And you would find that in these conferences that we attend, you'd find international people. Even in our classes, we have international students. So history is more respected internationally more than it is in South Africa.
Wow.
And even job opportunities, many job opportunities are from abroad. So here in South Africa, people are like history, and then classes you find that we have few South African. It's mostly German students from Dubai that come to South Africa to learn history, and it's just go for it. There are job opportunities, and yeah, it teaches you critical thinking. You think of it, you research, you become a great writer, you become a great researcher, you become a great reader, because reading is a skill. I didn't know that you have to develop a skill of reading.
Yeah.
So yeah, it teaches you a lot.
So it broadens your mindset if you go into history, and you have to be open to learning.
It sharpens you, and sometimes it. I was speaking with my classmates yesterday. Sometimes I that historians they're not in tune with their emotions. And now I understand because everything you're not an emotional being, and even your decisions are not based on emotions. Everything that you base everything on facts, on what is happening and what caused it, because you're constantly asking why did this happen? Why? When? What was the reason? What was the cause? And what was the result? So it just makes you this human thing, and you're like, this happened because of that. Because so sometimes you're not emotional. You don't make your decisions based on that because you're critical. You're not rational.
Yeah. So basically, you have to look at things from a different perspective. Then you can't go into it with a limited mindset. Then, but it sounds so interesting, and I can see that you are passionate about what you do.
I am, and you're not. People always think, especially Black people, when you tell them about history, they always think that as a historian, you make judgments based on what they know. That's not what history. You're not a judge. You don't make judgments. You don't say, no, our people are oppressed. We don't do that. Everything has to be based on fact. Whatever it is that you're saying, you have to back it up with something that is fact. So you're not making judgments based on
the way you feel about something. Yeah. So
how you feel.
I can't wait for your answer for the next question. How did you feel when you walked on the stage to accept your degree?
It was an moment. All the sleepless nights, the crying, the difficulties. It was just like watching. It was like, okay, this is what it was all about. Even though it's basically like 30 minutes of you having to shine, but it is worth it. And it just, I think it's an addictive feeling because now I want more of it. I'm like, okay, starting again. I want to feel that. I want to experience that high again and again and again.
So would you say you would go for the masters?
Definitely, that's not even a question. That's a definite answer.
So I hope that once you get your masters, we can have another interview where I can ask you the same question again to ask you how did you feel when you got your masters?
Yes, it's a definite. And with me wanting to explore more on women in, because my research is women in African traditional churches and how they were leaders. So for me to explore that and broaden my research, I had to do my master's because with honors, it's kind of limiting.
That's amazing. And for the last question, and this question on the show is the most important one. How do you define success?
That's so broad and that's so different. Um, 5 years ago I would have said having my own car, having my own house, having financial independence. But I think now that I'm growing up and I'm grown, soon approaching my 30s, I would say happiness, my family, hearing the laughters of my nieces, seeing the smiles on their face, God, and knowing that God has me. And yeah, that is all.
That is the most important things in life. That's
Although financial independence, all those things are nice and all, but you realize as you grow up that success is personal. It's a purpose. It's growth. It's not just your academic achievements, although they're important, but it's also improving. It's continuous growth. It's it's to uplift others, assist others, help those things. Because once we are gone from this world, none of those things would matter, and it's how we are remembered.
that's so powerful, Lelo. And you see, I'm still calling you Lelo and not by your full name.
That's okay.
Die hard. but but thank you so much for doing the interview with me. And I hope that we'll be able to do another follow-up one. And
Definitely.
I wish you all of the success in the journey and the path that you have been walking. And may God bless you always.
Thank you so much, and thank you for.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for joining in and watching our show. If you liked the interview and would like to see more interviews from amazing people, then do leave a like, a comment, and do share